Welcome to Chiltern Open Air Museum's community engagement project Haddenham Fusion, generously funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund. We actually started this project late in 2012, after most of the cottage was built, to involve our local communities in the telling of the stories to our visitors. The project was not only about the history of the people who lived in the cottage, but also about the story of the groups themselves, from the people who helped to build, research or donate their own artefacts, to the U3A Chiltern Snadfas who made period quilts for the 1840s, 1910 bedrooms, and the community groups originally from different countries who found they identified with the Victorian ways of life.
The project I looked at with great admiration. It just seems an incredible thing to have done. Now I know we had a long wait, but it's just been so marvellous that you've actually achieved it, and it looks, better than new.
I bought it and we moved in as a family. We lived there happy. I designed another house to go in the place of it, but I had to get the cottage condemned. And we started knocking the old cottage down, and somebody come along. He said, "Well, can we have it?" I said, "Well, who are you?" He said, "Well, we're from the museum at Chaffer St Giles."
It was so interesting for me to see how they literally, from top to bottom, took it apart piece by piece. They took tiles off, they were labelling everything, they got to beams, they were taking the beams off, labelling the beams, shipping them away, and then the wychert itself, they actually chiselled it away in blocks.
Wychert itself is the subsoil, particularly in Haddenham, and it's decayed limestone. A lot of people thought there's clay in it, but there really isn't. Very, very little clay in it, and that really is what makes it work so well. Because when you mix it with water and straw, it sort of forms a paste, so all the grains sort of lock together, and that way when it dries it sort of sets in that position.
Nobody's built a house since 1939. There are a lot of people out there who we've talked to and have helped us enormously with the project who have got experience of working with wychert. But they haven't built a house, they haven't had to do corners, they haven't had to do chimney flues, they haven't had to put windows in. So there's an awful lot that they couldn't tell us, which we had to work out for ourselves. So it's a tremendous sense of satisfaction, which is shared by the team of volunteers who've been working with me, that we can actually do this.
With the building that we've got behind us, the people there would not have been builders, they would have done this themselves, so they would probably have had far less skills than me.
There's a saying that good wychert wall needs stout boots and a good hat. So the boots are the grumpling, and the hat is the roof. But the rest of the wychert, then you build it up in layers or berries to get as thick as you can get it. But the funny thing about wychert is that the more you work it, and as you put each lump on, you have to work it into what's there, the more fluid it becomes, and that limits the height you can build at. Now the original builders managed to get 2 foot, 2'6" berries. We can't get anywhere near that.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it, so I've sort of gained experience in sort of working the lime plaster into the right consistency, learning how much water to add and the sorts of tools that we've been using and how to use these tools. It's quite interesting so when it comes to the ceiling, something I've never done before, learning the techniques.
What the Caribbean elderly ladies said was that the things that were here were very much like back home. When they experienced the wash day, they could see that they had brought a tradition that was here, and they had used it back home, just that it was in the rivers and not in the sink.
At 10-year intervals we were able to find who were living in the cottage once we decided which was the right cottage, because in those days they didn't put house numbers on. So I've been able to fill in by finding birth, marriage and death certificates, wills, looking on the internet at the censuses. I've been able to fill in all the families living in this cottage right up to the time it was dismantled and brought here.
I'm hoping we should get everything suitable of pieces of the right period. And to do so we've looked at online, various sale rooms which I know, and I've asked various people to keep an eye out. It's also, of course, finding things the right size, because the scale here is pretty small.
Well, we can now use the flagon that was hiding away in a cupboard that's never been used before, because if it's about the right age. We've got a rather nice tea service in there. We are getting in some things for the 1970s room through donations. But a lot of the things we've got, or will be in there, they're not in there at the moment, are actually in our stores that we've had here for quite a few years.
Our younger sister had the front bedroom, and this was the blanket that on her bed, and which I'm afraid we can't part with because it's now an heirloom, and Debbie's bedroom was based around these colours.
First of all, I did quite a lot of research about what sort of quilt would be suitable for this period, and came up with the idea of a crazy quilt because that was very popular at that time. They would use up all their scraps of fabric that they would have had around the house, everything from shirts to furnishings.
Ash Hill School, who, when I contacted them, got very excited because those children at that school do not get any school trips because their parents just are not the type of parents that take them to museums. Well, the main reason that I was able to persuade them to come was because it was a funded project, and they actually just had to get the numbers together and everything else was paid for.
I've really had this opportunity to learn so much. Things I never thought I'd ever touch, things I thought I'd never be able to do. What I'm learning now, providing we get younger volunteers coming through at a later stage, I can pass that on to them.
Oh, it's unique. I mean, I don't think another museum has actually got one, so it's something that people will come and see from all over the country.
When I saw it gone, I thought, well, that's the end of that. We won't see that again, you know. Now look at it. It's fantastic.
From my point of view, sort of having worked as an archaeologist in the past, I have experienced seeing these materials but not fully understood them, or what their origins were, or how they worked, and what they created above ground. So it's fantastic not only to keep these techniques alive and to pass the knowledge on, but it overflows into other areas as well, understanding of buildings and what keeps them alive, what makes them suffer if you do certain things to them. So it's treating them well and keeping them going for the next generation.
The part of Haddenham is now in Chelford St Giles, and so it's a wonderful thing. A number of groups from Haddenham have come along, and I'm sure they will in the future. You've put us on the map.